Today, we're going to go through a pre-workshop webinar on basic options knowledge. If you're new to options, this webinar will be critical for you. Today, we're going to cover the basic options terminology and the basic structures of a call and a put. To make sure that you're comfortable with these ideas, we're going to show how we can use these simple ideas to really meet our objectives. And it's going to open up all kinds of possibilities for you to manage your trades better, to have them be more successful. And I think once you really start to get comfortable with options, you're going to see a whole new world open up to you. It's very exciting. So with that, let's get into today's lesson. First of all, we got to go through our details and the CYAs. Just so everyone knows, I always say it's the beginning of every workshop, one of the great things about trading is the success you have or the failures you have, they get to be all your own. You are fully responsible for the decisions you make. Mark and I are here to help you be better traders, but whatever you do with the information we share with you, that is your responsibility, it is your choice. So we just want to be clear about that. So we have some standard compliance here. Okay, so upon the completion of this lesson, you'll be able to define the basic option terms related to calls and puts. And for each of the following positions, long call, long put, short put, you'll be able to define each position, recognize their profit and loss graphs, and explain their characteristics. We're also going to explain put-call parity and its implication for option pricing. So there are two types of options. There are calls and there are puts. A purchaser of a call has a right, but not the obligation to buy. So this is the big difference between options and underlying like futures or stock, or just other business transactions. In futures or stock, when you enter into a transaction, you immediately have an obligation. So if you buy stock from me, you have an obligation to give me cash, and I have an obligation to give you stock certificates. As soon as we make the transaction, we have these obligations and we are required by law to fulfill them. An option is very different. An option gives you an option, a right to be able to buy something in the future by a predetermined date. So when we talk about a call, we have the right to buy, but not the obligation. We can do it whenever we're ready, up to when it expires. People get the call idea pretty easily. The put is the one that they struggle with. The put is the right, but not the obligation to sell at a specified price by a specified time in the future. So with a put, you have the right to make someone buy from you. The call, you have the right to make someone sell to you. Let me say that again. With the put, you have the right to make someone buy from you. That's what's different. With a call, you have the right to make someone sell to you. So usually we do transactions where we buy first and then sell. But puts are interesting because they give you the ability either to sell first or to sell when you want. And that's why they're interesting. Here we go. What is the key difference between a futures contract or stock and an options contract? In a future or a stock, the seller has an obligation, the buyer has an obligation. With an option, the seller has an obligation and the buyer has a right. So a buyer is a holder of option contracts, and a seller is what they call a writer of option contracts. So one way I like to think about this that people can relate to is insurance and insurance policies. Insurance policies are really a form of an everyday option that everyone owns. So if you think about your homeowner's insurance, you pay for the right to have the insurance company reimburse you for loss on predetermined items. So you purchase a policy, and that policy is really a policy with a list of items that are covered, like your house, your furniture, your jewelry, that sort of thing. And it has a predetermined value, and that's the policy limit. So you buy $1 million policy, they will never pay out more than $1 million. And it defines the certain conditions in which you may basically file a claim. Your house burned down, the house flooded, it was hit by a tornado, you were robbed, all these sort of things are outlined. Some things are not in the contract, and you'll hear about this from time to time. So for example, sometimes people own homes that are on floodplains, be it on the beach or near a river. So their insurance is either more expensive or it's not covered in the event of a flood. So if the house burns down, they'll pay for it. But if the house floods, they're not going to pay for it. So you'll see in certain cases where there'll be some sort of natural disaster and it might not be covered by the policy. So basically in this transaction, you have the option, you have the right to file a claim. So because you have the right, you really own an option. The insurance company has an obligation to fulfill the insurance policy agreement in return for accepting your premiums. So here we said a seller is a writer. Well, if we look at insurance, the writer of the insurance policy is the insurance company. They're the seller. So in this transaction, we give them cash, and then they take that cash and they store it, they invest it, they hold on to it, so they have reserves to be able to pay in the event you make a claim. So they are the seller of the option, and they have obligations under the insurance policy. You are the purchaser, so you have a right. They are the seller, they accept the premium, so they have an obligation. Let me give you a real example of that. So a number of years ago, in my old house that I owned, the house was surrounded by trees. It was kind of like semi-wooded around the property line. And we had what they call microburst. So a microburst is like a mini tornado. And basically this microburst hit our backyard and wiped all the trees out along the back line. Big 50-foot oak trees, you know, they fell to the ground. And so I got a quote on it, and it was going to be about $30,000 to clean everything up and replace these trees. So I thought about it, and I'm like, do I want to file this claim? Because if I file the claim, what do you think is going to happen to my insurance premiums? They're going to go up. I'm not going to get something for nothing. The insurance company is going to view me as a higher risk, and they're going to want to try and recoup the money they paid out on the policy. So they're going to raise my premiums. So even though $30,000 was a lot of money to fix the lot line and replace the trees, I looked at it in the context of the value of my house and said, I don't want my premiums to go up. I want the insurance in case the house burns down or something like that. So I chose not to file a claim. I didn't have to file a claim. I had the right to file a claim, and I chose not to exercise that right. So that's a great example of how you actually have options in your everyday life via your insurance policy in your home, on your car, an umbrella policy, health insurance. You don't have to file a health claim if you don't want to. All these sort of things. So hopefully that's a helpful analogy for you. So let's talk about what are the key components of an option contract. First of all is what's the option on? That is the underlying asset. You'll hear us use the term underlying. And underlying is really a catch-all phrase for stock or a future or cash FX or whatever the option is on. It is the actual financial instrument involved. Then we have a strike price, and the strike price is the agreed upon transaction price. It's a specified price for the underlying that the buyer gets when he exercises the option, or the seller gets when they exercise their option. It's the predetermined transaction price. Then every option has an expiration. It has an expiration date. So you have a right to exercise up till that date. And at that point, the option expires and the seller of the option will keep the entire premium and they'll move on. And you will have to either go without the underlying, or you'll have to enter into another transaction, possibly another option transaction, to be able to gain access to the underlying. So we have an expiration. So in trading, there's expiration months, and in stock we don't run across these because stock never expires. But when we start to trade stock options, these symbology for months becomes important. So you can see it here. Jan, it starts with the letter F. Why it starts with F, I have no idea. No idea. But it starts with F. Feb is G, March is H, April is J. You can see all the way down the line to where D's the last month is letter Z. So when you look up at symbols, you're going to start seeing these letters associated with the month that you're looking at for expiration. Okay, so let's do a little exercise here, a call recognition exercise. So basically in these two little statements, what we're examining is we're going to look at both parties and we're going to see, does either party in the transaction have an option? If it does, we've created an option to buy in this case. Does either party have an option to buy or a right to buy? If they do, then they have engaged in a call option transaction. If both sides have obligations, it's not a call. It would be an underlying transaction. So first of all, let's look at John owns a farm in Ohio, and he offers to sell you, if you want it, 50 pounds of sweet corn in August when he goes and he harvests, and he'll sell those to you for $3 a bushel. Did John offer you a call on the corn? Well, in this case, the key line here is, yes, he did offer you a call on the corn. Why? Because he offered you the right to buy it in August. You did not have to. So this would actually be a free option. You didn't have to pay for it, but you had the right to buy it. You didn't have to. So you had an option. He had an obligation because he offered you, he promised you he would sell it to you at $3 in August. In our second exercise here, our second example, Ron agrees to sell you his house next month for $285,000. Did you give Ron a call on the house? No, because you both agreed that you are going to transact at $285,000. It really should be rewarded. It really should say, did you purchase a call from Ron on the house? Because you would be the buyer of the house. But you did not. You both have an obligation. So this is not an option. Okay, now we're going to talk about puts. So in puts, we have the right to sell. So you go to a stamp show with the idea of selling a limited edition 1954 stamp. The stamp has been popular lately, so you know that there could be a bidding war for it, or other collectors, recognizing the stamp's popularity, could show up to sell their stamps, limiting your chances for profit at the show. So due to this uncertainty, you approach a dealer who basically says he'll give you $1,200 for the stamp. And you think about it and you say, well, you know what, how about this? Instead of me selling you this stamp for $1,200, how about we do this? I will give you $75 right now for the right to sell you this stamp anytime during the show for $1,200. I'm gonna give you $75 right now, and then I have till the end of the show to come and say, oh, I want you to buy it for $1,200. And if so, we have an agreement. He agrees. Did you purchase a put option? Yes, you did. And this is because you have the right to sell him the stamp at $1,200, but not the obligation. Okay, he has the obligation to buy it if you choose to sell it. He took on that obligation by accepting your offer to pay him $75. So he actually raises his selling price. I'm sorry, he actually reduces his purchase price from $1,200 to $1,125, a reduction of $75. How did he reduce it? Because he got $75 extra from you to take on the obligation of buying. So if you agree to sell it, you actually will only get $1,125 and he will pay $1,125. So for him, it's a good deal. Why would you do this? Why would you give him an extra $75? Well, what if a bidding war shows up and by the end of the show, you sell it for $1,500? Well, you were stuck like in this psychological dilemma of, do you sell him the stamp at $1,200? By purchasing the option to sell it to him at $1,200, you could wait and sell it for $1,500 later. You would subtract the $75 you paid him, reducing your sale price to $1,425. But that's still much higher than the $1,200 he offered you at the beginning of the show. So you had flexibility, you had leverage to go out and seek a better deal. So yes, you paid for the right to sell him the stamp. Here's another example. The Napa Valley Winery is celebrating its 100th anniversary. It contracts with you to purchase 10,000 bottles for its anniversary edition Merlot. You agree upon a price of $1.25 per bottle and you will deliver it in June. Did you buy a put option? Well, when we examine this transaction, the buyer had an obligation because he's agreeing to buy 10,000 bottles at $1.25 in June. However, you also have an obligation because you agreed to sell them to him. Both parties have an obligation, so there's no option, no put option created. So the answer is no. So let's talk about option outcomes. Once you purchase an option, there are three possible outcomes for this trade. One, you can exercise the option before it expires by buying or selling the underlying asset. Two, you can do nothing and let the option expire worthless because you didn't exercise your right. Or three, you could sell the option to someone else and close out your position by trading out of the option. So here's some statistics. There's a stat that says, most options expire worthless. That's false. It's an urban legend. It's not true. Most options do not expire worthless. And here gives you some idea. 35% of options expire worthless, 17% are exercised, and 48% are bought or sold to close out the position. So let's talk about exercise and assignment. In an exercise, if you are the holder of the option, you notify the seller of your intention to exercise. And when you exercise, you now are going to take on the obligation of buying if you own a call or selling if you own a put. And the seller of the option has always had the obligation. It is now time for him or her to fulfill that obligation. So if you bought a call and you exercise, the seller of the call now has to fulfill his obligation by delivering the underlying to you at the specific terms you agreed to. Okay. With a put, when you purchase the right to sell, the seller of that put took on the obligation to buy. And so when you exercise your put, he now needs to fulfill his obligation of buying at the specified terms that you agreed to. Each option is composed of two values, intrinsic value and extrinsic value. Intrinsic value is the positive difference between the market price for the underlying and its strike price. Intrinsic value can never be negative. Extrinsic value is the amount of time an option has until it expires. So if you buy an option a year from now, you have a long time to choose whether you want to exercise or not. So that option will cost you more. It is worth more because you have more time. If you buy a one-day option, it's going to go by very quickly. So one-day options tend to be very cheap because you're going to need to make a decision basically today or by the end of day tomorrow whether you want to exercise or not. So extrinsic values are low. You can see here, the more time to expiration, the more value the option has. As we near expiration, the value goes to 0. Okay. So, for example, we look at a call, and a call has a price of 30 points. And we're looking at a futures price of $1,400. So the call price is $30, the futures price is $1,400, and now we're looking at a strike price. The strike price is the price that you have the option to purchase at. So if you exercise your call, you'll be buying this future at $1,390. Well, it's worth $1,400. So if we take the market price of $1,400 and we subtract $1,390, our strike price, we get 10 points. This is 10 points. We're going to get into this, but it's called being in the money. It's 10 points in the money, or $10 in the money. That is the intrinsic value of this call. So 10 points or $10 of the $30 value of the call is intrinsic value. That means the other $20 is extrinsic value. Okay, we'll get to that. When we look at an option, it can be considered to be in the money, at the money, or out of the money. So you'll see ITM for in the money, OTM for out of the money, ATM for at the money. In the money options are those that have intrinsic value. An option is considered in the money when an option strike price is below the market price of the underlying asset. So when a call option strike price is below the market price of the underlying asset, it is considered to be in the money. When a put option strike price is above the market price of the underlying asset, the put is considered to be in the money. So for example, if a call option strike price is $15 and the underlying is trading at $25, then the intrinsic value of the call is $10. It's the value of the underlying minus the strike price of $15. It's $10 in the money. So the way I want you to think about this is I want you to think about if you were to exercise, if I came to you and I said, I'm going to give you the right to go to buy a future at $15, and right now it's trading $25. Would you do that? Absolutely you would, because you'd pay 15 and you'd turn around and sell for 25 bucks and bam, you'd make 10 bucks. Awesome. So you can see when the strike price is for a call is below the market price, you're going to exercise it. It's in the money. For a put, it's just the opposite. If you had a right to sell, if I came to you and said you can sell at $35, oh, and by the way, over here it's trading at $25, you would totally do that. You would sell at $35 and then you'd run over there and buy at $25 and you'd make 10 bucks. Okay. So remember, intrinsic value is always positive. It's like an absolute value. So in the case of both calls and puts, if the respective difference value is negative, the intrinsic value is 0. An option that has 0 or no intrinsic value is said to be out of the money. So you can think of the intrinsic value of 0 is same as the O and out of the money. It's out of the money. So out of the money options have no value other than their extrinsic value. We also call this time value. No value other than their extrinsic value. This is the amount of time value they have left until expiration. An option is considered out of the money when a call option strike price is higher than the market price of the underlying. And a put option strike price is lower than the market price of the underlying asset. So for example, if corn futures are trading at $8 and the strike price of the call on June corn is $9, the call is out of the money. If I said to you, you can have the right now to buy corn at $9 and straight $8 over there, you're not gonna do that because you're gonna lose $1. So you'll skip. For puts, the opposite is true. If the corn futures are trading at $10 and the strike price of the put on June corn is $9, then the put is out of the money. So you're not going to sell it at 9 and then go over there and pay $10. You're going to lose $1. Okay, at the money options are a relative term. It's for those of you who love fuzzy logic. An at the money option has a strike price that's equal to the market price of the underlying asset. So if IBM stock is trading $100, then the IBM 100 call is at the money. It's usually used though in a more fuzzy sense. So if IBM stock was trading $99.80, then the 100 call would be at the money. Otherwise, it's like literally just one single price to be at the money. People view it as the strike that's closest being at the money. So since the strike price and the price of the underlying are rarely exactly equal, options of strike prices very close to underlying are typically considered at the money. So here's a little intrinsic, extrinsic valuation exercise. So we have Microsoft trading $156.25. We have a June 150 call trading $14.75. A July 155 call trading $13.25. A June 150 put at 10, and a July 150 put at $9.50. So first of all, we're going to go through here and say, okay, are each of these options in the money, at the money, or out of the money? So the 150 call is less than Microsoft, value of Microsoft. So if you could buy Microsoft at 150 and you could sell it at 156.25, would you do that? Yes, you would. So it's in the money. The July 155 call is this one is going to be up to your interpretation. It is in the money because you would totally buy Microsoft at 155 to sell it at 156.25. So it's in the money, but it's also close to at the money. So either answer would be acceptable. The June 155 put, would you sell Microsoft at 155 and buy it back at 156.25? No, you wouldn't. Okay, so it's out of the money. It is also close in terms of strike price, so it could be at the money. Either answer is acceptable. And then the July 150 put, you're not going to sell 150 and pay 156.25, so it's out of the money. Now, with intrinsic value, we look here, and the June 150 call has $6.25 of intrinsic value. We take Microsoft, subtract the strike price, and it's $6.25 in the money. That goes here for intrinsic value. And then extrinsic value is what remains. So 1475 minus 625 is 850. Okay. Then with the July 155 call, it's price of Microsoft minus the strike price gives us intrinsic value of $1.25. 1325 minus 125 is $12 in extrinsic value. With the June 155 put, we said this was out of the money. We also said at the money was acceptable. It has no intrinsic value, so all the value is extrinsic value. The July 150 put, we said was out of the money, so intrinsic value is 0. Extrinsic value is 950. It's all time value. Okay. All right. So now let's talk further about calls and puts. A call is the right but not the obligation to buy. We said this. So the holder or buyer of the call has the right but not the obligation to buy the underlying at the strike price on or before the expiration date. They're going to pay a premium to have that right. The seller of the call has the obligation to sell the underlying at the strike price on or before the expiration date. So they accepted a premium in return for the obligation, just like the insurance example. The put, the buyer of the put has the right, but not the obligation to sell. They'll pay a premium for that right, and they have the right to sell the underlying at the strike price on or before the expiration date. The seller of the put is short the put. They have the obligation to buy. Why? Because they accepted the premium, they got paid. They have an obligation to buy the underlying at the strike price on or before the expiration date. So when you're long a call or a put, you are long the right to buy or sell the underlying. When you're short the call or short the put, you have the obligation to buy or sell the underlying. Okay, let's move on to the call. So let's look at P&L graphs. Okay, so right here, when we look at a call has a max profit of unlimited. You can make an unlimited amount of money being long a call. It has a max loss of the premium or the debit that you pay for it. Its break-even price is the strike price plus the debit you pay for it. So with a call, you have limited liability. This is the big appeal of options for many people. You have limited liability that's limited to the debit of what you pay for the call. And you have unlimited profit potential. You control the option. You have the right. Okay, you paid for that right. One of the cool things is this can actually help create a guaranteed stop because you can't lose more than your debit. So if you buy stock and the stock has a big gap down, you can lose an unlimited amount of money. When you buy a call, you cannot lose more than what you paid for the call. So it acts like a stop, a guaranteed stop. It can't gap your stop. So that's a very appealing aspect of long a call. Being long calls are best in low to normal volatility environments. They have negative time decay. So we'll get into this a little bit more here in a minute. But basically what this means is every day that goes by that your option doesn't perform, it becomes worth less. It's working towards zero. So we had this graph where we showed as time went by, the option became worth less and less. That's what's happening. So options decay every day that goes by. Long calls will benefit from a rally, especially a fast rally. So we'll be talking about this on Monday because this relates to why the strategy works well on REIT stocks and on momentum stocks. So in our example here, we're buying a 100 call at $2.70. So the most we can lose is the debit, which is $2.70. And we see that basically below 100, we lose $2.70. Okay, we'll get into this more on Monday, but if we were actually buying stock, we could lose an unlimited amount going down. The graph would be a straight line on a 45-degree angle. But here it flattens because our loss is limited to the debit. Our break even is the strike price plus the debit. So the strike price is 100 plus the debit of 270 means our break even is 102.70. So this is an expiration graph, but basically at expiration, if we're above 102.70 or higher, we make money. Our break even is 102.70. If we get above 102.70, we can make an unlimited amount of money. The stock goes to $300 a share, something like Tesla did recently. You can make an unlimited amount of money. You can do really, really well. Okay. So here's a real example. Here we're buying two Microsoft May 15th. This is the expiration dates. May 15th of 2020. 170 calls at 8:05. We're paying $8.05 for a call. Now in stock options, when you buy a call, it's the right to purchase 100 shares. So one call equals 100 shares. So here we're buying two calls, which would give us the right to control 200 shares of Microsoft. We're paying $8.05 for these calls. So here's our P&L graph. Our strike price is 170, and basically $8.05 is $805 a contract, times 2 is $1,610. So it cost us $1,610. You can see here, this is an option screen from Interactive Brokers, which we'll talk about on Monday. But basically, we can basically see the performance of our call via this graph. You can see our max loss is $1,611, basically $1,610. And the max return is infinity because we have unlimited profit potential. Our margin is basically what we paid for the call. It's $1,620. So it's roughly the same. And we see the same P&L graph. So 170 or lower, we lose $1,620. Then our break even is going to be 178.05. And you can see that's right in here. 178.05, that's the strike price plus the debit. And above 178.05, we make an unlimited amount. Okay, pretty cool, right? Now, here, this is the P&L graph of the call right now. So a lot of times people say, well, why would you ever buy a call? You got to move to 178 before you make any money. It's not true. If you buy a call and it moves today, you start making money right now. You can see if we buy the call and Microsoft goes up, we start making money right away. And if we go down, we start losing money right away. But notice we don't lose near as much. It's not quite linear. It's a very flat curve here, where this is a much steeper. It's not a curve, right? It's say an angle. So here we can see over a range of prices how much money we make or lose. So these are done by percent movements in Microsoft. So if Microsoft were to go down 10%, we would lose $1,200. Microsoft goes up 10%, we make $2,357. We make more going up than we lose going down. It's good. That's one of the great things about calls. So, okay, this graph here is shows basically, this is similar to what we just saw with Microsoft, where here is the expiration graph of the call. And here is if this is basically buying a soybean $5 call. If the market rallies right away, we make money. If the market breaks right away, we lose money. What I want you to notice here is that as time goes by, if we don't move, we actually start losing money without moving. So you're probably used to losing money when the market goes down, but when you're long an option, if the market doesn't move, you're going to lose money while you sit. So basically you can see as we sit, prices start falling. And as they start falling, we have to move further to get back to break even. So when we bought it, if it moved right away, we make money right away. But if it takes a few days, and in this case, this is actually 25-day increments. 25 days later, we now have to move further to get back to break even. 50 days, it's even further. 75 days, it's even further. And then this is 100 days out. This option expires in 100 days. Notice though that most of the money is lost, particularly here at the money, it's lost at the end. The time decay accelerates over time. So initially it's slow, and then each increment gets bigger and bigger to where most of the money is lost near expiration. Okay. So I'm going to have you here. You are going to graph your own call. So we're going to buy a June 120 call at $3, and I want you to graph it. So you need to make sure you write your strike price down, determine your debit, determine your break even, and draw the curve or the P&L graph at expiration. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Okay, how'd we do? We should have drawn a vertical line at 120. Below 120, we would lose the debit of $3. Our break even would be 120 plus the debit, or 123. And above 123, we make an unlimited amount of profit. That's what your graph should look like. Okay, now we're going to move to the short call. So with the short call, it's going to be just the opposite of the long call. So with a short call, the maximum amount we can make is the credit we collect. Can't make any more than what we get up front. So in this case, we're selling a 100 call at 270. We're getting $2.70 up front. That's the most we're ever going to make. Our max loss is unlimited. We can lose an unlimited amount of money. And our break even is the strike price plus the credit. So when we're short a call, we have unlimited liability. We can lose an unlimited amount of money, and we have a limited profit potential. We also lose control of the option in exchange for collecting the premium. We lost the right when we collected the premium. Now we have an obligation to sell, in this case, stock at $100 a share. We have that obligation. So basically, short calls can be used as a hedge to enhance return by adding a credit to the purchase price of your stock. So we'll get into this, but this is often called a covered call or a covered right. And it's a way of adding additional income to you owning a stock. Selling options, selling calls are best in normal to high volatility environments. Ironically, everybody wants to sell them in low volatility environments, but they're best to actually sell in normal to high volatility environments. They have positive time decay, so they benefit each day that passes. So when you sell a call, you can make money with the market not moving. Market sits there, every day it sits there, you're going to make a little bit of money. And being short a call will benefit from a break. Benefits from both breaks, but slow breaks are better than fast breaks because the volatility will stay low. Okay, so you can see here, we're collecting $2.70. So below the 100 strike price, we make $2.70. Our break even is strike price plus the credit. So our break even is 102.70, and then we lose unlimited amount above 102.70. So here we are selling to Microsoft May 15th, 2020 expiration, 170 calls at $8.25. So the maximum amount we can make is the credit we collect. So you can see our max return is $1,611, and our max loss is infinity because we have unlimited loss potential. You can see that IB actually kind of puts a handicap on this and says there's a 48% chance you'll get all the money. So the other thing that's very interesting is the margin implications. It's much more expensive to sell options in terms of capital than it is to buy them. So notice the margin difference. When we bought the calls, our margin was $1,620. When we sell them, we're selling the same call for roughly the same amount of money. The margin is $7,941. It's basically almost 5 times higher than the long calls. So you gotta have 5 times as much capital to sell the call as you do buy it. And this is because you have to cushion for the unlimited potential loss. Okay. Probably asking, why would anybody ever sell a call? Well, because there's this 48% chance they're gonna get all the money. And they get selling options can be very psychologically appealing because you make money all the time. If you have a strong desire to be right, when you sell options, you'll be right a lot. That makes you feel good. But to be right a lot, you're exchanging it for unlimited loss. So it can be pretty common, particularly for novices, to sell options and make money, and then lose it all and then some when the unlimited risk takes over. So I might share this with you on Monday, a little story that will show that. So we notice here, here's our P&L graph at expiration. We sold a 170 call, and above 170, we keep the entire premium we collected. We keep the $1,610 or the $8.25 per call. And then our break even is 170 plus 825. So 178.25, and we see that here. And then we lose an unlimited amount above there. Okay. Now, same thing. Here is the curve right now when we do the trade. If we break, we start making money right away. And if we rally, we start losing money right away. Okay. So, and we can see down here, if we break 10%, we make $1,200. If we rally 10%, we lose $2,383. We lose a lot more than we make. Okay. Here's the same graph of the $5 call in soybeans, 100 days from expiration. So now what we see is if we sell this call and the market doesn't move, we start making money. So after 25 days with the market having gone nowhere, you're making money. Then after 50 days, you're making even more. And after 75, you're making even more. And then in the last 25 days, you make a bunch. Options have bigger, at the money options have much greater time decay near expiration than they do when there's more time. Why is this? It's really revolves around certainty. So the more uncertain the outcome, the higher the premium, the higher the time value that's associated with the option. So when we have 100 days to go, there's a lot of unknowns. So there's a lot of value attached to a 100-day option. But as time goes by, we're getting a little more certainty and a little more certainty about whether the option is going to be worth something or whether it's going to be worthless. And we see this continues, but now as we get closer to expiration, the certainty increases. So the value is becoming less and less. And as we get near expiration, the out of the money options all go to they basically all become worthless. But the at the money keeps its value all the way to the very, very end, because even at the very end, it could go in the money or out of the money. It could go either way. So this is why people like to sell options, because they make some money every day, every day, every day. All right. So let's take a minute. You're going to sell a May 75 call at $4.25. Take a minute and graph that. Okay, we're back. So here you should have drawn a vertical line at $75. And then below $75, you would make the $4.25 that you collected in premium up front. Your break even would be 75 plus 425 or 79.25. And then above 79.25, you would lose an unlimited amount of money. That's what your graph should look like. Okay, now we're going to move on to the puts. As I said, people get calls pretty easily. The put is always the bigger challenge. So with a put, we're purchasing the right to sell. That's what confuses people. We're purchasing the right to sell. Okay, so when we buy a put, our max profit is unlimited, bound by zero. Can't go to negative value. So it's effectively unlimited, but it does have a zero boundary. The max loss is the debit you pay for it, and the break even is the strike price minus the debit. It's on the other side now. There we go. It's on the other side of the strike. So with a put, you have limited liability and unlimited profit potential. You control the option. You paid for the right to sell, so you control it. This also creates a guaranteed stop when used as a hedge against underlying. When we buy a put, it can also act as a stop because basically if the market has a big gap up, your loss is limited to the debit you paid for it. Or if you're short stock and there's a big gap up, you get hurt badly. It has negative time decay, just like the long call. Every day it's going to cost you a little bit of money that when it doesn't work. And it's going to benefit from a break, especially a fast break. So this is going to sound familiar with stocks. Stocks tend to break fast. So being long puts when the market goes down tends to be very good. So we see our graph here, we're buying 100 put at $3.70. So now above the strike price, we lose the maximum amount, our debit of 370. Our break even is the strike minus the debit. So 100 minus 370 is 96.30. And then we can make an unlimited amount below 96.30. Okay. So let's look at Microsoft here. I apologize, this is an error. So we're buying a Microsoft May 15th, 2020 expiration, 170 put at 745. And here, 745 times 2, 745 times 2 is $1,490. We can see that max loss is 1,501, the 51% chance of losing the max amount. And the margin implication, the margin you have to put up is $1,488. There we go. Sorry. Okay. So we see with the put, the break even is at 170. Below 170, or sorry, above 170, we lose the $1,490 that we paid out. Our break even is the strike price minus the debit of 745. So that would be 162.55. You can see right here is the break even. And below that price, we make an unlimited profit potential. So you can see our max return, because we have a zero boundary, is $32,499. And now when we look at the, well, going back to, because we make this trade now, we'll start making money right away if the market breaks, and we'll start losing money right away if the market rallies. So we can see down here, if we break 10%, we're gonna make $2,171. And if we rally 10%, we're going to lose 1,055. So we're making more on the way down than we're losing on the way up. Okay, now here's our long put. Here we're buying a $5 soybean put with 100 days to expiration. And we're seeing the same behavior as we did with the long call, just flipped. So at $5, if we break, we make money right away. If we rally, we lose money right away. 25 days goes by, the longer we go by sitting in the same place, we're losing money going nowhere. So we're losing money 25 days out, even more 50 days out, even more 75 days out, and then we lose the most right at the end. So the more time that goes by, the further we have to move to get to break even. Day one, we make money right away. 25 days, we gotta move a little bit before we start making money. At the end, it's all the way down to strike minus the debit. Okay, so let's take a minute here and have you graph the long put. Remember to put your vertical line at the strike price and then graph that, and I'll give you a minute. Okay, we're back. So here you should see, you should have drawn the vertical line at $2. The max amount you could lose is $4, and you would lose that above the strike plus the debit. And then your break even is the strike price minus the debit. So 200 minus 4 is 196. So your break even would be at 196. And below 196, you have unlimited profit potential. Okay. Move on to the short put. So the short put, our max profit is the credit or the premium we receive up front. Our max loss is unlimited, bound by 0. And our break even is the strike price minus the credit. So when we sell puts, we have unlimited liability and we have limited profit potential. It's limited to the credit we received. We have no control of the option. We sacrificed control for the premium we collected. We took on an obligation for the premium we collected. This can be used as a hedge to enhance return. So if you're short, you could sell a put against it, and you would add premium. You would add a return stream to your short. Selling puts are best in normal to high volatility environments. They have positive time decay, so every day that goes by, they're going to decrease in value. And they're going to benefit from a rally, especially a slow rally. They'll do well in a fast rally too. But the idea is we don't want the market to move too fast because then it's volatile and then it doesn't go down as fast. So everybody loves to sell puts when the market's quiet and vol's low, but it's actually best to sell them when they're high, like it just was. But then everybody's scared to sell them. That's why it's best to sell them. Anyways, so we see here that we sold a put at $3.70. So at $100, we make $3.70 at expiration, and above 100, we keep our credit of $3.70. This should say max profit of $3.70. That's a typo. And then if we break, our break even is the strike price minus the credit for $96.30. And then below there, we lose an unlimited amount of money. So when we sell puts, we want the market to rally. We don't want it to break. Okay. So here, we're selling two Microsoft May 15th of 2020 expiration, 170 puts at 740. Now, again, I want you to notice the margin difference. So to buy the puts, we had to put up $1,488. But to sell the same put, we have to put up $8,813. So this is actually, it was 5 times more for the call, but this is actually like 7 times more. It's 7.5 times actually. So we have to put up a lot more money to sell the put. That's because they're viewed to be inherently dangerous. So we look at the P&L graph and we see at 170 or higher, we keep the full 740 we collected. Our break even is going to be the strike price minus the credit of 740. So that's going to be 162.60. And below 162.60, we have unlimited loss. You can see here our max return is 1471 and our max loss is 32,529. Again, because of the zero boundary. So we can see that if we sell a put and the market rallies, we start making money right away. If the market starts breaking, we start losing money right away. And we can see down here, if the market breaks 10%, we lose $2,171. If it rallies 10%, we make $1,043. So I'm going to have you now graph a May 50 put at $2. So take a minute and do that. Okay, I'm back. All right, see how you did here. So we have the vertical line at $50. Above $50, we keep the $2 credit that we collected. Our break even is the strike price minus the credit, so $48, and then below $48, we lose unlimited amount of money down to zero. Okay. So, and here's the graph of a short put, and we can see with the short put, we make money right away if we rally, we lose money right away if we break. We have 100 days to expiration again. So if each day that doesn't go by, the put is worth less and we make money. So 25 days out, we haven't moved, we're making some money, and we actually have to move further before we start to lose money. 50 days out, we make even more money, and we have to move even further before we start to lose money. 75 days out, we're making even more money, and then at expiration, we get the biggest amount near the end. Okay, so people again like to sell these because they make money every day the market doesn't do anything, but they're sacrificing that. Basically, they're taking on the risk of this big move down. So here you are. Here's the basic graph shapes that we learned for the 4 different types of options. Now the last thing we're gonna get in today is put call parity. And put call parity is critical because put call parity allows us to be able to price options without a computer, at least roughly so. And that has some value, and it's also gonna help us learn this concept of synthetics that we're gonna learn on Monday, which is gonna help us really be able to have a lot of flexibility in how we view our positions, which basically the great advantage of options is the more you understand your objectives, the more options are effective in helping you reach your objectives. So if you're very clear about what the objectives are for individual trades or for your system, you can do way better using options than you can underlying. Because underlying is like a blunt instrument. You buy or you sell, that's it. But when you engage in options, you have all these different characteristics that you can weave into the position to help you really benefit from your objectives. That's the power of options. So part of that is really understanding the concept of synthetics that we're going to get into on Monday. But to be able to do that, we really have to understand put call parity. So we've already talked about intrinsic value and extrinsic value. But here's the key thing. The extrinsic value of calls and of puts with the same strike price is equal. It's the same. And why? Because extrinsic value represents uncertainty. So the same uncertainty that is there for the call is also there for the put. If you think the call is going to be in the money, if you're certain the call is going to be in the money, then you're also certain that the put is going to be out of the money. If you're uncertain that the call is going to be in the money, you're also uncertain if the put's going to be in the money. They are equal. So time value reflects uncertainty in the market, and the same uncertainty exists for the call and the put when the strike price is the same. The fact that time values are equal make options interchangeable. This is key. The fact that time values are equal will allow you to make a call a put or a put a call. We're going to cover that on Monday. This will be the basis for synthetics. So we have a formula that we use, and this is the put call parity formula. This basically allows you to determine the call or put price of the other option in the same strike. So if you know the value of the call and you know the value of the underlying, you can figure out the value of the put, or vice versa. So here's the formula. So K equals strike price, C equals the call price, U equals the underlying price, P equals the put price, and then we have this concept called banking component, which is carrying cost minus dividend. So The formula is strike price plus call equals underlying plus put plus banking. Strike price plus call equals underlying plus put plus banking. And in some respects, for our discussion, we'll get into this in a second, you can almost eliminate banking and just focus on these four. There's other ways to express this. So if you want to solve for the call equals underlying minus strike plus put plus banking. Want to solve for the put, it's strike price plus call minus underlying minus banking. And underlying equals strike price plus call minus put minus banking. So if you want to simplify, you could almost take the banking off. The banking component is the most intimidating aspect of put-call parity, and it's also the least important. Proprietary trading firms and banks have complicated models for option pricing. The formula is an arbitrage formula, and these firms will not let it get out of line. The formula being out of line really represents free money to them, because their computerized algorithms will immediately trade against any mispricing and put the equation back into line. So you don't need to worry about it. They've got it covered. And that's a place you're not going to compete with them. Zero chance of competing with them because they have spent millions of dollars. They have the best mathematicians, the best technologists. They're going to make sure that's not going to get out of line. But this is actually great news. Why? Because we can lean on these efficiencies to use the formula to determine the prices of our positions without a computer. Do it all in your head. So the one exception I want you to be aware of as it relates to banking is that if you're long a call on a stock that pays a dividend, the only way to receive the dividend from the stock you own is to exercise your call prior to its ex-dividend date. You exercise the call prior to its ex-dividend date, because on the ex-dividend date, that decides who gets the dividend. That way, if you exercise prior to ex-dividend date, you will be the holder of record when the stock pays its dividend. So if you hold a call and you don't exercise, you do not receive dividends. You will not get the dividend. A lot of stocks don't even pay dividends, or the dividend's very small. So you'll have to look at this for yourself. If you're trading a stock like Chevron, which was recently paying as high as a 9 or 10% dividend, that's going to be important, and you're going to want to exercise the call. But if you're trading a stock that has no dividend, like Amazon, you're never going to want to exercise Amazon calls early because there's no reason to. We'll get into this on Monday. So I put a link in here that you can click on if you want to understand this concept more at Investopedia. So let's go through a couple exercises quickly to determine the value of an option using put-call parity. So here we're looking at the S&P future, and we have the basically, is the 2850 call in the money or out of the money? Is the 2850 put in the money or out of the money? And then we're going to use the formula to figure it out. So the 2850 call is in the money because the strike price is less underlying. So it's 5 points in the money. That's the intrinsic value. And so the put is out of the money. And so we can take the out. We know that the extrinsic value of calls and puts are the same. So if the extrinsic value of the put is 22, it's also 22 for the call. So we're going to take 22 plus the 5 points of intrinsic value, add it together, and we're going to get $27 is the value of the call. $22 is the value of the put. There it is. Okay. We can run a proof. Call price minus strike price, call price minus put price should equal the difference between the underlying and the strike. 27 minus 22 is 5. 2855 minus 2850 is 5. Okay. Let's do another one. We're looking at Microsoft stock now. Microsoft is trading $171 a share. We're going to look at the 180 call and we're going to look at the 180 put. the May 180 call, May 180 put. So is the May 180 call in the money or out of the money? It's out of the money because it's above stock price. That means the put is in the money. How much is the put in the money? It's in the money by $9. 180 minus 171. So we know that the extrinsic value of calls and puts are the same. The call is worth 6. So that means the extrinsic value of the put is also 6. 6 plus the in the money amount of 9 is 15. So the put is worth 15. There it is. Okay. There's a call recognition page. There is a put recognition page. There's an intrinsic, extrinsic value where basically you're going to calculate what is the amount that that is intrinsic value and extrinsic value for each of these. Then there's a put call parity worksheet where you're going to go through what we just did and figure out the missing value using the formula I showed you. And that's it.